Morena, and welcome to today's Daily Chorus. I'm Bernard Hickey for the Kaka. It is Monday, August the 4th, and this is my daily podcast and video that goes out with my email newsletter via the Kaka on Substack. It's all about Aotearoa's political economy around housing, climate, and poverty. Today, I wanted to focus on the consumer confidence survey that came out on Friday from ANZ Roy Morgan. It's a monthly survey, and it is one of those that can give you a leading indicator of what's happening with political support for the government, and it's a leading indicator too of economic activity, in particular retail sales. It showed another fall in consumer confidence in July, and ominously for the government, also showed a significant increase in consumer expectations for inflation. They're now at over 5%, 5.1% in July, up from 4.9% in June. We've also seen a significant fall in the answer to the question, what do you expect your own personal financial situation to be in the next 12 months? And now a minus 21% net expect to be better off, i.e. 21% expect to be worse off in the next year. And that's because they see their wages growing relatively slowly, but inflation rising much faster. So a real wage cut. And although this survey doesn't ask consumers what they expect their wages to be, the ANZ Roy Morgan survey of businesses for July, which came out last week, showed that businesses expect to pay around about 2.5% wage inflation in the next year. So if you have consumers expecting inflation of 5% and employers likely to increase wages 2.5%, you've got a real wage cut of 2.5%. It isn't helped, these expectations, by the government pushing through wage offers to nurses, midwives, and teachers with nominal wage increase offers of about 1%. So again, if we got a 5% inflation number, that's what people expect, and a 1% wage increase, so that's a 4% real wage cut. Now, usually consumers actually expect higher inflation than what we actually get. Now, there was a period when that didn't happen. And I think it's worth showing you some charts to give you a sense of A, how important consumer confidence is in terms of the economy, but also B, how closely correlated it is with support for the government and the various political parties. So let's just have a look then at some of these charts. In particular, we've got here consumer inflation expectations and CPI inflation. So the red line is what inflation actually turned out to be, and the blue line is what consumers thought inflation would be. So between 2009 and 2021, consumers had quite consistent inflation expectations, around 3 to 4%. And that, of course, started to change as prices rose through late 2021 and into 2022. And you can see there that for the first time in a long time, actually since the GST increase back in 2010, consumers are actually surprised in the wrong direction. So inflation was actually higher than what they had expected. And that 2022-2023 period where the gap, i.e. the disappointment gap, was significantly higher, was really a big factor in the change in the government. Now, you can see now that there has been a surge in inflation expectations by consumers. So back above 5%, 5.1%, and that's the first time that's happened since May 2023. And this is a potential problem for the government because when you look at what happens for consumer confidence and retail sales, there's a very close correlation. So the blue line there is the question, good time to buy a major household item. So would you be quite keen to buy a fridge or a TV or something like that? And that's quite a good indicator of what's actually happening with real retail sales. And that's down again this month. And you can see there as a leading indicator, it's quite effective. And it shows that essentially since 2021 or so, consumers have been spending less in real terms. So they may have been spending more in nominal terms, but because of inflation, they're spending less. And that tallies with the retail recession we've seen and all sorts of shops closing and hospitality closing and that sort of thing. And you can see here that because of the drop-off in employment, the rise in unemployment, and continued falls in employment, there is employee confidence. This is a separate survey done by Westpac at a record low, and back at the lows it got to during COVID. Now, the other reason I keep a close eye on this one, apart from the fact that John Key used to say as Prime Minister that he always watched consumer confidence as a leading indicator of what's happening with the government, you can see here this chart shows you the dark blue line, which is the consumer confidence rating. And then the sort of teal line there is the same surveys finding about confidence in the government. And you can see there that they bounce around, but there is a pretty close correlation. So when people are less confident about their own financial situations, they tend to be less happy about the government's situation. The old, it's the economy stupid line. And that chart there hasn't been updated for the July figures, but you can see there that it's going to drop. And that is an issue for the government to keep an eye on. I'm Bernard Hickey. That was today's Storm Chorus for Monday, August the 4th. And if you're watching this, it's because our paying subscribers to the Kaka have asked me to open it up for the public. Ka kite anō.